Okay, today we're watching races and classes of the Riot's MMO according to the lore. So obviously we watched the other one already, the world's already made, and he made a follow-up, which is probably even more interesting because races and classes are interesting. Also, will it even have classes though? I don't know. I mean, obviously having a lot of races to play will be super fun, but let's watch it. Let's watch it.
Well, I'm back. Last time we had a look at the world of Riot's MMO, and we talked about how the overall world design has been done for a few years now. If you have no idea what League's universe is about, I would recommend watching that one first.
We did that.
But now that we learned about the basics, we can dive into the other big MMO topic, the playable races and classes. When it comes to the races, just like the world, they are pretty much done. Over the years, the lore fleshed out the races of Runeterra,
or something like that.
And now they each have their own unique story. In fact, at this point, it feels like we know Riot will not make up a brand new race. Of course, they could always theoretically do it, but I seriously doubt they would. Because that would be like forcing a new race into the world of Lord of the Rings. It would feel off among all the already established rules. I strongly doubt you wanna put a bunny person next to Aragorn. With that said, don't worry, because the lore will allow Riot to make up new races and make them feel natural. I'll show you their clever system in just a moment. But for now, just know that yes, we already know the races of this world.
I like how
so
Kennen
the question
looks,
is not going to be what races Riot is going to make up. The question is going to be, from the races that already exist, which ones will be playable? And perhaps more importantly, how will they be playable? You see, a few years back I released a similar video where we talked about the classes and the races together with TB Skyen. And today, I would not recommend you watch that video. Back then, I was still clinging onto the idea that faction-based MMOs were a good idea. It worked for WoW, and it worked for my guilty pleasure, WildStar. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that merely a year later,
the real way you do faction-based MMOs is once you make your guild a faction. That's how you do that. So no one else, you basically have enemy faction as in enemy guilds, and everyone else is just neutral to you, right? And your guild is basically your faction. That's how you do that. So if Riot ever does that, that would be cool, but who knows?
Later, the idea of faction-based MMOs would crumble to dust. That's because factions have a massive flaw. Besides the fact that PvP is almost guaranteed to be one-sided. I mean, who would want to play for the losing side? Especially if there is no compensation.
True.
Classic WoW is a perfect proof of that. Not to mention New World. But also, if you split everyone into two sides, you are splitting up your player base.
Yep.
And that is almost never a good idea.
Yeah, and some friends want to play Horde, some friends want to play Alliance. You can't do content together. Splits up. That's why, as I said, like if you have guild-based factions, you can still play with everyone on the server, but you can choose to make your own enemies and so on, right? And then therefore it's way more organic, and the players can decide who their enemies are and who aren't. You know, that's how you do that. Do that, please, Riot.
You simply don't want to prevent people from playing together. The reason why in the past it worked for WoW is because Blizzard heavily played into the faction pride. People were proud to fight for the Horde or the Alliance. But even back then, it really wasn't perfect. And then people started min-maxing the game and they realized that factions didn't matter. And that's where Riot has the edge. You may know that League of Legends has a lot of different regions, where they all act independently and they all have unique relationships with their neighbors. Because of this, forcing faction alliances into this world would ruin the already established lore. So PvP factions are most likely not going to be a thing. However, despite that, League absolutely has faction pride. People love it when a new Shuriman champion is announced, because people love that place. And people love it when the new champion is not Ionian, because goddamn we have too many Ionians. Nearly every League of Legends player has a favorite region. And you bet when the MMO comes out, people will want to play for that region. And this is where
I just want to have a cool ass character that has cool abilities and I can customize it to the fullest extent, not only visually but also skill wise.
the brilliance of Riot's world kicks in. You see, the fundamental lore of League of Legends is based around the idea that anyone can be from any region. After an event the story refers to as the Westward Migration, races mixed up all around the world. So it's not like there is a furry region where you can only see furries. There are definitely regions where you can see more furries, but this world doesn't have exclusives. This means that when you're picking up what you want to play, besides just picking a race and a class combination, I strongly suggest Riot also allows people to pick their origin, with the origin being the starting region. Without a system like this, you would force all human champions to be, for example, Noxian. And that is simply not how this world works. So, I've been mumbling about how this world works for quite a while. So now, let's actually dive into all the races that exist in this universe. Spoiler alert, League doesn't have too many different races, because it's focusing on depth over variety. Of course, as it is with any RPG, there is the human race. But it would be cool if the humans varied depending on their origins. For example, if you pick a human from the Freljord, they would be an Iceborn and they would have extra frost resistance. A Demacian could have a bit more magic resistance.
That makes sense.
Ionians could have a bit more nature resistance, Shuriman's heat resistance, and so on. I think it's going to be crucial for Riot to preserve the feeling of every origin feeling at least slightly different. This is an RPG after all, and despite the fact that balancing is usually a big issue, I strongly believe these RPG elements have to be preserved. But if Riot is afraid of people min-maxing the game from the very beginning, focusing on the origin stat with the most value, Riot can always do the safe thing and only give each origin different customization. In the Freljord, people tend to be more pale, with lush beards and Nordic tattoos all over their bodies. Shurimans have the classic dreadlock style. Cool. People from Bilgewater have the pirate crew tattoos. Piltovans are your fancy mustache people, and Ionians have the wild untamed hair and beards. So even without special origin stats, I do believe these unique character customizations would enhance the region pride too.
It's a good idea.
So that's what humans would be about. Pretty versatile and nothing too special in an RPG world. So now, let's have a look at the more unique races. After humans, the second most spread out race are the Vastaya. As we mentioned in the last
It's what Zaya is and Rakan and so on. I don't know who the hell this is or what that is. But it looks cool, it looks like a satyr with like daggers. I think you could do so much with this, and I said this before, because this world is so huge that they could have no classes, and they could just have a super in-depth and complex skill system, which progresses your character even beyond end game, and you can have like so many customization options. And maybe just a soft class system, maybe similar to like Path of Exile, where you just have where you choose like a little bit of a specialization in something, but nothing that completely restricts your character, you know, and limits it. That's what I want to see. I want to see the next gen of MMO like progression, you know? Yeah, I think his pajama pants are poggers. I've never had a pajama pant in my life, actually. You think Timmy that plays Valorant with his friends can figure out what skills to pick? Fuck, who cares about fucking Timmy? He will figure it out. Okay, Timmy isn't dumb. He can fucking 360 fucking no-scope someone. He can figure it out, man. Fuck Timmy, he will figure it out. He's just gonna be a little bit taken aback at first, but he'll figure it out eventually. Okay?
Video. The Vastaya are a race that came to be after humans started mating with magical animals. But the thing is, depending on where they are from, there are loads of different kinds of Vastaya. From cat boys to fox girls to lizard girls. In fact, here's a family tree of all the Vastayan tribes, and even this This doesn't cover all of them. And this is where Riot can pull off something genius. As I said, this world already has set rules. So it would be very difficult to introduce a brand new race into this universe. However, it is going to be very easy to just make up a new Vastayan tribe. So I propose that Riot doesn't make the Vastaya as a playable race overall, but instead it would be cool if Riot let the specific tribes to be playable races. This would leave the door open for them to introduce new playable races later down the line.
How many animal human crossbreeds do we need? Like, do you want to make a race out of all of these? Like,
if they cross off all the Vastaya at once, they kinda shoot themselves in the foot. But I know, here I go mumbling about how the world works again. So let's have a look at some of the specific tribes. When I say Vastaya, most people think of Ari. She comes from the Vasani that look like foxes. Although her tribe is mostly gone, the lore can justify new members to be found, so they can be playable. The Kilash tribe comes from the jungles between Shurima and Ishtal. These lion-like people are known for hunting dangerous beasts, and they take great pride in trophy collecting. It's the average mount collector. The Shimon tribe are monkey-like people from Ionia. While their older members are cool, very wise, their younger members can be very goofy. The Otrani come from Mount Targon, resembling the classic goat people. Their hobbies are taking care of the Stellarcorns. The Lothland tribe are Ionians who resemble bird people. This tribe likes to combine the art of dancing with lethal assassinations. The Uvikat are something close to lizards, though they do have the ability to shapeshift. Out of all of the other tribes, these are the closest to their pure blood ancestors. And we also technically have the Marai, the fish people whom I doubt are going to be playable. Imagine modeling boots for them. Now, these were the more pure blood tribes, but there are many more Vastaya who don't fit any of these.
If this game is a Genshin clone and you can just do like very limited amount of things with people and it's just gonna be this... Nah, please, man. Please no. Please none of that.
Set has an Ionian Vastayan mother and a Noxian human father, so he doesn't really have a tribe. Long story short, the Vastaya are an incredibly versatile race and Riot can use them in a million different ways. This is where they can really go wild. But that's it for the Vastaya. So now, let's have a look at the third most popular race, the Yordles. These are the classic RPG tiny people. In League of Legends, people either adore them or hate them, there is no in-between. Kinda like those guys. But not those guys, everyone hates them. There is no doubt in my mind that Yordles will be playable. Even though they have an interesting catch. You see, unlike all the other races on Runeterra, Yordles are immortal. They are essentially modes of magic that come from a hidden magical realm known as Bandle City. And because they are made of magical essence, when they die, we don't really know what happens. But we assume they return to the Bandle City and there they respawn. With that said, the lore suggests that maybe Yordles can die, but they just can't die of old age. But let's ignore that, that's a massive rabbit hole. So, you know, when it comes to gameplay...
What if... Okay, listen. What if Yordles are the only race that can canonically respawn and therefore the only playable characters? There's no, you can't play humans or elves or Vastaya or whatever the shit. You can just play these guys.
Corpse running is going to make sense for them. Now, because Yordles are immortal, in most cases they are always happy and cheerful. Even their home realm is very colorful because of that. But then there is also Vex, a Yordle champion who has recently been added into League of Legends, who gives Yordles an interesting perspective. You see, unlike all the other Yordles, Vex hates living. She hates the bright colors and the cheerfulness. You know, it's the average League player. So Vex is constantly in deep depression and agony. All she wishes for is to leave this world, but she can't, because Yordles can't die. Anyway, just like all the other races, Yordles can be found all around Runeterra. There is Poppy in Demacia, Kled in Noxus, Kennen in Ionia, Rumble in Shurima, and so on. But now, so far we have only covered the races which I'm pretty sure will launch with the MMO. The humans, the Vastaya and the Yordles are the core of this world. So now we are diving into the races that still exist in this universe, but it's going to be up to Riot if they make them playable. First of all, there are the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are different from the Vastaya because they don't have magical ancestors. They are just a standalone race. Originally, the Minotaurs controlled the mountains south of Noxus, but because Noxus is Noxus, soon they absorbed the Minotaurs into their empire. With that said, some Minotaurs fled the tyranny of Noxus and they joined the other regions. A great example is Kryl, the Minotaur fighting in the elite armies of Demacia. And yes, the Minotaurs also have the stereotypical sexy female version in this universe, so they can easily be turned into a playable race. Next, in Bilgewater, there is an incredible amount of weird fishy people. A lot of these could be really cool playable races when Bilgewater gets its expansion. Although modeling helmets for a hammerhead shark is going to be interesting. Yeah. We also can't forget about the trolls. Previously I showed you the ice trolls, but there are also the sand trolls. And here's an interesting fact for League veterans. We have never seen a sand troll, but because of Ezreal's adventures, we know they exist. They should be around Icathia, which is where Jax is from, who also has 3 fingers, by the way. So it is extremely likely that the mysterious Jax is a sand troll. Regardless, the majority of trolls are united under Trundle, the self-proclaimed Troll King, who is fighting in the service of Lysandra, who is a baddie even though she is morally right. So since the majority of the trolls are our enemies, I doubt they will be a playable race. Lastly, let's not forget that this universe also has Yetis. Fun fact, before everything got frozen, the Yeti civilization was very advanced. They even had their own technology based around magic. In fact, Willump, the Yeti Nunu is riding on, is a hologram from the Yeti technology. But then, as the civilization disappeared, the Yetis went a bit more ferocious. So no, they won't be playable either.
It looked like
but that's pretty much it for the races. As I mentioned, there aren't too many different kinds, but that's because Riot is avoiding mimicking other RPGs. That's why there are no dwarves or elves here. Runeterra is simply trying to be unique in every way, and so far, it is working. Now, I also have seen some people asking if Darkin will be playable, to which I have to say...
Ejena? Soraka? No, Soraka is a Vastaya, probably. Janna is an elf. Celestial? Yeah, but she's also like a goat thing, right? Maybe she's like a mix. Huh?
That's like asking if you can play as a god. The Darkin are a corrupted version of the Ascended God Warriors. A single Darkin can annihilate an army of 1,000. In fact, the Darkin known as Aatrox is the only being in existence that managed to kill a celestial god. He stabbed someone wielding the power of the Aspect of War so hard, the Aspect of War died. So no, I don't think Darkin will be playable.
I mean, I could see... Okay, listen. I could see Darkin being like a skill or a transform kind of thing. Like, if you get a Darkin weapon, you have like a specific transformation and stuff or something, you know? I could see that. I don't know if that's what the lore would support, but... God of Wind, oh. Aatrox Giga Chan, actually based.
Anyway, with all the races covered, assuming Riot is going to use the Origin system, this is what the playable races could look like. Humans
are from... I mean... Demacia, Freljord, Piltover, Shurima, Ionia, Targon, Bilgewater. But isn't Targon more like the mountain? There's so much cool shit you could do with the... He talked about the little different clans they have at Targon, like the guys that follow Diana and the guys that follow Leona and so on. There's so much cool shit you could do here. Astaya, Noxus and Piltover. And then you could like pick your starting zone like this, you know, with his graph here. Like if you want to be a Pilt, you could be a Vastaya and then you will spawn in Piltover, but you can't spawn in Freljord or Demacia or something like that. Then again, would they really make that many starting areas? I don't really see that, to be honest. Targon is the mountain. Humans live there and worship the gods and aspects more fanatically. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. 3 to 4 starting areas. I mean, he said that maybe I could see just the starting areas being the first 3, you know? Maybe 4. Demacia, Noxus, Freljord, and Piltover. I could see those being the starting areas. The minute that would also kind of make sense, I think. Let people choose. I mean, that's fine too, I think, but it's obviously always, they always want to keep it within the universe to an extent, right? Which makes sense. But I love how we're theory crafting this much already about a game we know nothing about.
Humans are versatile, they are everywhere, there is not much to mention there. When it comes to the Vastaya, the common tribes can easily appear in Noxus, Piltover and Bilgewater. These are the regions open to everyone. On the other side, the Vastaya are closely linked to spiritual magic, so you will hardly find one in Demacia, since it is a firmly anti-magic region. And somehow, not many Vastaya were ever mentioned in the Freljord, so Riot doesn't have to force them there. But then we have Shurima, Ionia and Targon. Assuming these would be saved for expansions, they could be used to introduce new playable races. Since I doubt all the newcomers remember the names, the Kilash, Lothlan and Otrani are the Lion people, Bird people and Goat people. Oh. When it comes to the Yordles, as I mentioned, they can originate from anywhere, but they do avoid the Freljord and Targon because of the harsh climates. And yes, I know there were some prehistoric Yordles in the Freljord, but after it got covered in ice, they disappeared. And lastly, the Minotaurs can be found in Demacia and Noxus. But it does make sense for some of them to flee to the Freljord, and others to travel to Ionia.
Yeah, actually, good question. Would you guys want, like, that expansions give you races at all? I actually don't know. Because races are, yeah, usually weird, because then your main can't be at that race unless they have like a paid service. So it would be cool if they had all the races already in at launch and then just have... I don't know what... I don't even know the base design what they're going for, guys. We don't even know that. I don't even know if they will have any classes or anything.
During the invasion. With all of this said, remember, this is just my decently educated opinion. Since the races are pretty much mixed up all over Runeterra, Riot could also lift the limitations and let every race start in every region. And I would be fine with that. Yeah. Some story would be wonky, but it wouldn't be anything horrible. Although I still believe some racial exclusivity helps the feeling of RPGs. So, all of this is still only the first half of the video. If you wanna take a break and do your business without washing your hands, now's your chance.
Good, I'm gonna be right back, guys. Here. 1 second. Okay, let's keep it up. Let's keep going.
This program will continue in 5 seconds.
Did you wash your hands?
I didn't.
Okay, so far we only covered the races, which was definitely still the easy part. The much more difficult part are going to be the classes. This is where Riot is facing a great challenge. Partially, it's because there are inherently no wrong answers when it comes to designing a class system.
There won't be a class system. If you want to make a like, there could be like as I said, like a specialization system. We can specialize in certain things, And maybe they will still have class names or whatever, but it should be mostly classless, I think. Yeah, and you could make such a great experience with that. They have so many developers and so many people that can think about these things, so they could actually make a very, very cool, in-depth, complex no-class system, I think. That'd be badass. Will they do that? I don't know, but I think that they should.
You can really make anything work if you put some thought into it. But more than that, Riot is challenged by the setting itself. League of Legends currently has over 160 different champions. They each have unique abilities, and together they can define about 40 different classes.
Right,
I counted them myself. From these, Riot has to pick only a handful to be playable, which means the majority of the classes won't make it in. And people who love those classes will be disappointed. Thankfully, I'm not a designer, so instead of trying to figure out how to make this work, I'm going to show you all the cool, unique classes this universe has. And again, because region pride is a big part of this universe, you'll see that some of these are tied to specific regions. But not the warrior. That one is different in every single region. So let's start with that. The warriors in this universe provide a unique challenge on top of the already difficult decisions. It's because in every region the fantasy of a warrior is represented by something else. In Demacia it is the Dauntless Vanguard. These are the classic knights in shiny armor pursuing justice. In Noxus the traditional warrior would be part of the Trifarian Legion, which is a rank you can achieve after killing your best sparring friend in combat. These guys rarely use shields. In Shurima, the classic warrior is...
And that's why, again, what about if you make it just very loosely class-based? Like, very loosely. And then you have all of these different, like, types that you can, like, take from, you know? Maybe you take one skill from the Shuriman warriors and one skill from the Noxians, and then you can get one skill from a raid that drops an ancient... Freljord warrior skill or some shit. You know, you could make such cool shit with that.
The warrior of the Golden Army. These are fighting for the glory of the Shuriman Emperor. In Piltover, you would have the Enforcers. Simply said, it's the cops. People will know these from Arcane. But in a way, the Wardens are the melee warriors of Piltover. But then, in the Freljord, warriors are represented by the Berserks, either wielding axes or giant blades as they worship the primal god known as the Iron Boar. On Targon we have the Warriors of Rakor, which are somewhat themed after the classic Spartan armies. Then in Ionia the classic warrior is known as a Blade Master, with samurai-styled swords that have a rich history in this region. Also, there are the Vuju Blade Masters, which are on a totally different level. The Vuju technique is so powerful it was forbidden from using it in combat. The TLDR version of the story is that when Noxus invaded Ionia, Master Yi obliterated entire Noxian legions on his own. Before Noxians realized how overpowered he was, and they nuked the town where the Vuju Blade Masters were trained.
I want to do that. Okay, when I see a guild of people coming in and I'm a Vuju Blade Master and I fucking devour all of them, that's what I want to see. Yeah, make players be absolutely overpowered if they want to. If they're good enough. If they have the power, the strength, the tenacity, the skill, the reaction time. Yeah. Yeah.
So now there is no more Vuju Blade Masters, just normal Blade Masters. And lastly, the common warrior in Bilgewater would be a brawler. You see, I just named 8 different kinds of warriors. How is Riot going to handle this? I don't know. They could just make one warrior class and then just have the players play out the fantasy while wearing cool armor sets. Or they could make it so that every origin has a different skin of the class.
Again, no classes. Or very soft class specializations would be the best way to make this game. 100%. Riot, you're probably not watching. because yeah, you're also not reading my application, which I mean I'd expected, but do that. Do a very soft class system, max. And allow players to enjoy the world and the freedom and the skills from all over the place.
You know, all the abilities would be the same, they would be doing the same numbers. But when a Noxian swings a weapon, there is a bloody trail. And when an Iceborne Berserk swings a weapon, there is a frosty effect.
I want way more than that. I want to, if you have a frost axe and you're from the failure, it's not just gonna be a frosty effect, it's gonna slow the target, and if you hit it 5 times, then it's gonna freeze it. When the Noxian does blood axe, fucking talon tree, fucking whirlwind blood, Darius skill, whatever, and there's some completely other shit, dude. Like, I want this to be way more than just, oh my god, I'm gonna pick a Freljord character, so I have some blue themed stuff, and the other one has 3 red themes. Like, fuck all that, dude. Just a little, come on, go all the way, go all the way.
But again, this is for Riot to figure out. Now I'm just going to show you all the unique and interesting classes from this universe.
Riot.
In Demacia, we have the Mage Seekers. These are the people who hunt down mages. They carry with them a stone disc called the Grey Mark. This is the tool that allows them to absorb magic. So this would be sort of an anti-magic class. There are also a lot of iconic Demacian scouts. Also, Demacia has a lot of stories about theaters and bards. But Demacia also brought spotlight onto the Sentinels. The Sentinels of Light are people dedicated to fighting the undead. Because the undead can't really be killed with normal weapons. They use the relic stones that can be forged into any weapon. Be it a crossbow, a gun, a really big gun, or even a sword. Fun fact, in the lore, the Sentinel guns don't have triggers. You have to will it to fire with every fiber of your body. So of course, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP. Lastly, this will be unknown to will it to fire with every fiber of your body. So of course, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP.
Requires control, so then it requires focus. You need to will it to fire with every fiber of your being. Lucian laughed and turned to Senna, on eyebrow raised. Every fiber of my being.
Lastly, this will be unknown to even veteran League players. But Demacia put a really cool twist onto the Paladin class. You see, in League of Legends, when you play as Garen, his ultimate is to smite his enemies with a giant holy blade. This made people wonder, is Garen a mage? In Demacia? Actually, no. In the lore, Garen has never done anything even similar to this. And that's because there is something even cooler happening. Most people in Demacia pray to the aspect of justice, which they call the Winged Protector. That's why Demacia has a lot of angelic statues. Coincidentally, the aspect of justice can also be found in League, its Kale. So what's happening is that when Garen is casting his ultimate, it is not him magically creating a holy blade in the sky. It is actually the aspect of justice answering his call. So even though this universe doesn't really have a paladin class, which would be casting holy spells, this would be a really cool alternative. People who worship the aspect of justice and let her answer their calls. Pretty cool, but now let's move on to Noxus. Noxians are one of the only regions who harvest black powder, so they also have their own mercenaries with functional guns. In Noxus you can also find a lot of demonic cultists, so I would expect a warlock or a demon summoner, and they also have a few renowned assassin guilds. And the most unique of them all, Noxus also has a circle of hemomancers, people who follow Vladimir, a lord who used to be a hostage to the Darkin, and who eventually learned how to use their blood magic. So these people use the very same blood magic that shaped the Darkin. Then in Shurima we may find arcane mages. These people follow Zerath, the most powerful mage on Runeterra, whose body
Oh yeah, what?
has been reduced to nothing but arcane energy.
So he was a person before? I thought he's just like an elemental. Or something. Oh. Brand 2, spoilers. Cool though.
I would honestly love to see this class in-game, because I love the idea of having an Archon form on cooldown. Shurima also has some prophets who can open up tiny portals into the void and summon tiny void creatures. It would be sort of like Warlock in WoW. You know, use the power of the enemy against themselves. Then there are the Sand Shifters. People who can use the sand to create sand mirror images.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the Chronomancers. People who use time magic.
Now that, same with Echo, I guess, to an extent. Now that, whenever you have like these chrono things in games, it's always a little, oof. You know, it's always a little, I don't know. That I don't know. I think it's badass. Like, for example, we saw in the Riot fighting game how they used Echo and how he can just like time shift backwards a little bit and so on. It's so cool for combos and like combat in general, right? But it could also be hella broken, so we'll see.
A lot of creative, interesting ways. Then in Piltover, riding off of the success of Arcane, people will want to play as a Warden, which is a more elite version of the Enforcers. These would be equipped with sniper rifles and stun grenades. On the crafty side, there are also the Hextech Engineers. These are the people who can use science to allow them to wield magic even if they are not mages. And separate from them, there are also the Artificers. To them, anything from a powerful arm to blade legs should be possible. And down in Zone, I would love to see some kind of an alchemist, who's using questionable drugs to help his allies. Next we go into the Freljord. Here we can find the Draklorn Inquisitors, which are Lyssandra's followers with abilities themed around true ice. Essentially, these would be frost battle mages.
Like, imagine you're okay, imagine this, okay, chat, listen, hear me out, okay? You will start as a no class, nothing. And then you can do like some quest lines that will get you into like specific class, soft class things, right? So you, for example, you have to go to the Freljord at level 40, or because otherwise you can't go in there, or whatever. And then there's a hidden quest line that makes you one of these guys, and then you get some like class specific stuff and maybe a class specific talent tree, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're only this class forever, but that means you have like, you know, you're part of this class now or some shit. Like, I don't know, but like just something that where you as a player have the choice. You don't have to pick a class when you create your character, you know? I hope this game gets cancelled so I don't have to hear about this for 3 years.
But perhaps the most iconic for the Freljord would be the Shamans. These worship the animalistic primal gods of the Freljord, and all their abilities mimic the primal gods.
I'd play
be
Udyr.
it a bear, a fox, a mammoth, or a boar. Then on Targon we would find a lot of people with celestial powers. You know, calling down stars and such. But there are also the Solari who use the power of the sun to enhance their attacks. They also wear massive plated armor, so this would be the tank class.
Yes, fuck alts. I want to do everything on one character, preferably.
Or the Lunari, who use the power of the moon to stay in the shadows. This would be more of an assassin class. Besides these, there are also a lot of Starcallers around, and even Draconic worshippers. Then in Ionia, besides the Vuju Blademasters, which would be far too overpowered, some people choose
like if the average MMO player is getting a headache by managing 4 buttons, then they maybe shouldn't even play games in the first place and should start from scratch in elementary school, because holy shit. Like, the moment you want to cater your game to absolute dipshits, that's when you lose a lot of the design fun, dude. Fuck them. Okay, fuck them. That's what I say.
Fight without a blade. These would be the monks of Hirana. They channel the power of Ionian dragons to empower their limbs. And don't worry, they are a bit different from the traditional monks. They are far more badass. Think less Bruce Lee and more Dragon Ball. But of course, Ionia is also home to the Kinku ninjas. Their goal is to maintain balance in Ionia. This means
Like,
that
even
when
for the ninjas, right? There's so much difference there. Like, you could be a Shen kind of ninja, which is more of a tanky bruiser frontliner ninja. Then you could be an Akali kind of ninja, which is more stealthy and like bursty and combo heavy. And then you could be a cannon kind of ninja, which is lightning and shurikens. Like, that's what I mean. Like, no classes, man. No classes. You don't need it. What if you can take something from all of these things and become your own class, you know? Fuck that. That would be so cool.
when a spirit starts killing people,
Zed,
the ninjas go out and deal with the spirit. And when people start terrorizing the spirits, the ninjas go out and deal with the people. Most of these are your classic ninjas empowered with spiritual magic, but some are using the forbidden shadow technique. And while they surely look evil, just like anything in League of Legends, it's not really one-sided. These ninjas are simply using questionable techniques to protect their homeland.
No, not even
And
like Arcage. Arcage is even too restrictive, I think. I think it would be cool if you had like... Maybe you pick like 2 like soft classes that you just pick and choose, but it doesn't necessarily restrict you from picking up abilities from other classes either. It just gives you like a specialization tree or something, you know? But you can still wield a bow as a mage. You could become a mage, like a mage bow person. Or a spell sword, or if you're a warrior, you could also have a staff or some shit, and then you have a battle staff and not a magic staff, you know? Like, I don't know, you could have like a lot of sandboxy elements in the class system, and that would make it really good.
Honestly, the Shadow Ninjas are so iconic for Ionia, I really do believe they will be playable. Then we get to Bilgewater. Besides all the things that you could do with pirates and monster hunters, the most iconic class of this place are the priests of Buru. The Buru worship the god of motion called Nagake Boros. While they are priests, they fight with full physical strength, while borrowing power from the god to empower themselves. Usually this means the god
you get abilities through quest lines, through fucking dungeons, through drops, through crafting. There's a billion things you could do with that. And MMOs are so limited nowadays that people don't think about that. All of the developers are always like, we will have no races, we'll have 3 classes. Those 3 classes have like 13 abilities. Here you go, bang, let's go raiding. Cringe. You could, MMOs have infinite possibilities, and that's what you want to communicate to the player as well, that you can become anything, dude. That's what you need. Obviously, some degree of specialization is probably not too bad, so you don't have Illaoi with Kraken arms, and then at the next second she's some holy Kale-looking character. that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So a little bit of specialization, and that limits you from getting like other kinds of specializations. I probably make sense, but I wouldn't say it's too like, don't make it too restrictive, you know? Yeah. The problem is that with a classless system, you still need a bound system to equipment, like system based on gear. I mean, you need a system for all of it, right? All of it. Can I be the Baron? Being the savior of the world and chosen one? Yeah, fuck all that. We don't need a main story quest line either. Just let us explore this place. That's what I want. Give us quest lines that are like around the world. Maybe some, like how WoW was back in the day. Good old vanilla WoW. There's quest lines everywhere, but you don't need to pick up any of them if you don't want to. And there's a lot of hidden quests, like hidden little secrets. Maybe some skills that you can find that no one has seen before, that are like hidden in a chest down in the sea, and you get like a whatever, you know? That'd be so cool. There's so many things you could do. Yeah, I have never played that Amadeus.
Tentacles to smack the enemies around, but they also have healing powers, so that would be a really cool support class. In Riot's RPG called Ruined King, you can play as Illaoi, the High Priestess of Nagakeboros. And there you can see all the attacks she can pull off. And this takes us to the last place, Ixtal, which will most likely be saved for an expansion. As I mentioned in the last video, Ixtal specializes in only one thing: elemental magic. So if elemental mages become a class, and they should, even in League elemental dragons are a core mechanic, they would come from Ixtal. But that's it for all the unique classes this universe has to offer. Funnily enough, when I was drafting all these classes, I realized a lot of them fall under specific categories. So going with the skin idea for all the classes wouldn't be too unreasonable. But developing so many artistic variations of the classes would be taxing. So overall, I believe Riot should not care
if they want to make the next big MMO. Making this will be taxing, period. Okay, like what if there's so many different specializations? Let's just assume that. Okay, let's assume you can be an artificer of these magical absorbing statues, and you could also become a Illaoi priest at the same time. And then there's like 50 of those specializations. For some you have to do more, for some you have to do less. Maybe you can even swap them around, who the fuck knows. There's so much you can do, right? There's so much you can do in MMO. Within the MMO you can have card games, you can have insane PvP battlegrounds that are in and of itself just their own game almost. You could have arenas and sieges and territory wars and open world PvP and raiding and open world raiding and open world dungeons and dungeons in general and fucking whatever, you know? There's a billion things you could do. You could have, like, I don't know, jumping puzzles again. There's so much things that I probably can't even think of right now that you could put into that game, right? Like, just don't be too, I hope this game isn't too limited when it comes to creativity, because that's what we've been seeing for, like, on MMOs for a long time, that they're just not going the step further, you know? So we'll see, I guess.
About disappointing some players for not including their favorite class. With so many options, it's going to happen anyway. Instead, pick a couple of classes that simply make sense for you. You know, a Blade Master here, an Arcane Mage there, and just have fun. Having fun during development usually translates into great experiences. And I hope I'm not pressuring anyone by stirring up hype. If anything, I'm just happy that people find these videos interesting. And all I'm doing is presenting information that Riot released over the past 10 years. I mean, I know the video is interesting because Asmon only paused 3 times and he said,
"That's fucking cool."
And
I like it a lot.
And
that's what the fuck? This is actually really cool. I didn't know any of this.
That to me marks a big success. Next time we are going to talk about all the already established raid bosses of this universe. Which is a very personal topic for me. You know, I am a father, my son is 2 years old. So by the time this MMO comes out, he's going to be just the right age to heal my raids.
True, unfortunately, and that is, yeah, yeah, that. What kind of race is he? What is Ornn? I want to play that. What Ornn is a god, right? A primal god? I mean, that fits, right? I'm a primal god too, IRL. So yeah, I should. Yeah, maybe I can make. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I can. Maybe I can play the primal god. That wouldn't be too bad, would it? You're a primal fraud? What is that? What? That was a cool video. Will be linked, obviously. I'll link it right now. And that was fun. It was a fun one. Hopefully, I'm curious for the next one with the raid bosses. So.